and driving? Allison, no. That's the exact opposite of what I was just saying about you. Why, Allison? Why? Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopRex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. However you may be tuning in, chiming in, adding those likes and reacts that we certainly do appreciate, like already first on the line there, Monica Cervantes, do appreciate that. But of course, social media is one of the better ways you can interact with us throughout the program. Not to say that we do not discount or at all not have a concern or consideration for our so-called terrestrial radio constituents and people out there. But, well, if you want to get and dive into that way, particularly with the many vagaries of social media, whether they're working this day or not, still on Twitter as far as we're aware. But, well, I'm willing to be see that maybe not to be the case anymore, but we'll see about that. And also, we got a lot to talk about, a lot going on in the Borderland here today, including, those triple digits heats absolutely continuing, including as noted by El Paso Matters. I do believe as of yesterday that El Paso hits 100 degrees for the record, 24th straight day. So it's definitely scorching out there, and it's not getting any better this week. If you don't like being able to cook in your back seat, still haven't tried that one out, but given that we're looking at those like just near 110s coming up, now may be your chance. Maybe I'll see if I'm willing to have that coworker let me do that, because it did hit 160. I mean, it's enough to technically sous vide a steak or something, right? Isn't it? So if you want to get real fancy with it, wonder if that'll work. Anyway, a lot of other things going on, including potential actual deal from the Texas legislature on what to do about property taxes. Actually coming to a deal, despite them all agreeing on that. The House, the Senate, and the governor definitely pushing to it as we're in the second special session. We'll see how this one actually ends up going. Not exactly going to be holding my breath on this one, though it would be a pleasant surprise. We also have Amber Bond chiming in with the rock on. Do appreciate it over there. And other big business news happening in our region, including the purchase of Sunland Park Mall. I don't even know it was for sale, but anyone who's been in that mall lately may have known that they probably got a pretty good price at it, and why a other recognizable local name is taking this moment and renaming the place. Interesting big development news there, along with a whole lot of other things going on and reporting happening here in the Borderland that we will certainly be continuing to talk about, and how all the people are beating the heat in our region as well, certainly. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot to talk about. It's a full week, back in studio for all of this week, of course. I feel like we've had a lot of out of the studio time lately just because of the way, again, the Juneteenth holiday and that kind of interesting span between that and then July 4th is an interesting one. But, hey, we're dealing with it. And, again, people continuing to go out there. So a couple of notes just on the heat real quick. Not trying to become y'all's weather reporting center or anything, but once we hit some of those record numbers, we have mentioned previously that there are a couple of programs out there intended to help people, including the fan donation program, that people can donate fans at just about any fire station within our region, or if they need a fan, they can call 311 on that, particularly in our region. But El Paso County, of course, it has its cooling centers that are available. They're open they are open on Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. according to our news partners over at KFOX 14, and now open Monday to Friday 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. in order to really make sure that the major part of the days are dealt with. City of El Paso also has their cooling centers, but this from the county, it's available at the Agua Dulce Community Center, the Fabens Community Center, and the Cañetillo Community Center. So I do believe that the City of El Paso's ones are open, at least not open one day out of the week. So keep that one in mind if you're in need out there, but also if you need a fan, need to keep everything open and available, be sure to do that. Oh, okay, the city has now opened the cooling centers are available Sunday through Monday, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., and then Tuesday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Friday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Specifically, there is the Galatsan Recreational Center, the Marty Robbins Recreational Center, Bajo Community Center, Nations Tobin Sports Center, and the Talio Acosta Sports Center. So if y'all know someone in need out there, make sure that they get taken care of. Also, the public libraries, though. There's also some other notes from our news partners at KFOX 14 about people going to the air-conditioned bus terminals, among other things. So the heat continues on. So I think we're kind of in the circumstances of when we talked about the random freezing temperatures we got. Think about your people, pipes, pets. Okay, maybe not so much the pipes in this circumstance, because if your pipes are bursting from the heat, you probably have some other very serious problems going on there. So we also have Ida Basic Gardner joining in with us. Hi, with the wave there for you as well. But of course, been a lot of other big local news. The one that, as soon as it started coming out, was generating a lot of buzz, along with at least people I know in conversation. Sunland Park Mall, which, okay, I have a person I know that loves dragging me there in order to share in the, for lack of a better term, desolate nature of it. Anyone who's been to Sunland Park Mall is it's not exactly bustling. I mean, there's plenty of stuff going on there. There's some interesting stores and different things, but like the interior of the mall, among other things, there's a volleyball court that's set up there, which I'm sure is great for that team and the parts of it. But let's just say I didn't take it as a good indication for like the mall, like the fact that you're taking up walkway space with the sports venue. It was an interesting choice at the very least. And I guess I took it as a further, okay, what's going on with this venue in this area? And so that is going to, well, hopefully be changing. I mean, I'm very in favor of seeing more stuff happening and available in our area. And it kind of goes along with I don't know if I've mentioned it on air previously, but a supposition I've had about the possibility for what could be going on with not even just the mall, but Sunland Park Drive in general. And this goes towards it. So enough of the teasing here. From El Paso Inc., Sunland Park Mall gets new owner plans for revitalization. And Ida Bazagard asking what the new name will be for Sunland Park Mall. That actually has been released already. So it has now been purchased last week by Enoch Kimmelman, president and CEO of Star Western Wear, which, of course, Star Western Wear notably moved into the mall from their kind of own separate or like strip mall location. They got the downtown one as well. Moved into the mall back in 2017 or 2018, I want to say that it was. I think it's quoted in the article here somewhere. So the fact that they did that, 2017 after the Macy's, theirs closed. So I actually got the chance to meet Enoch a few years ago, pre-pandemic, which feels like a lifetime ago at this point, as they were working on doing different kind of things, different promotions with us, among other things. So I got the chance to interview him for a promotion that was a part of that. So he has now going to be renaming the mall the Shops at Solana. Shops at Solana. Shops at Solana. And RJ saying, it was always a small, boring mall compared to Cielo Vista. And this is not to say that there, of course, I mean, malls and their viability in this modern economy have definitely been in question. Do not get me wrong, but there have been plenty of other things like Cielo Vista has always, anytime I've been end up going, that's a little bit out of my way from my neck of the woods when I'm spending my free time anyway, but it's always pretty well bustling and pretty well stuff going on over there. Heck, even Bassett has seen, I would say, a better level of use and usefulness lately. So the Shops at Solana, what Kimmelman told El Paso Inc. is, quote, malls across the country have gone through a change in a way that they operate. Now, successful malls are places with shopping and entertainment, activities for the family, a place to go that's temperature controlled, and a safe environment. So that kind of leads to a question or a consideration that I've been having about what could be happening with Sunland Park Drive in general, about it potentially becoming, like, say, a full entertainment corridor, and not the way we keep trying to call like 2-block areas in town entertainment districts, which often end up just being bars, among other things. Because think about what exists on Sunland Park Drive right now, at least in the immediate, so I'm not talking about the part where it turns from Shadow Mountain into Sunland Park up near Mesa. Once you get past all of the houses and down into the retail sections near, what's the closest thing? There's like the Five Guys and the Great American Steakhouse, those kind of things that kind of on the, I guess, the eastern end of it. And then down even, of course, into Sunland Park, New Mexico, kind of anchoring at either end there, is then, of course, you got Sunland Park Racetrack and Casino, Star Western Wear, and then there was that plan that has, we probably should check up on that because that could be an interesting one. They plan for an arena, amphitheater, venue, space in that land kind of across from Sunland Park Racetrack and Casino. So that would be the kind of western end anchor of it, and then, of course, into the city of Sunland Park. Or is it the village, the town of Sunland Park? Let me double check on that one. But Sunland Park, New Mexico, and that aspect of it. And then we've got other entertainment things that have been popping up, like you got your monkey rocks that have been within the actual Sunland Park Mall itself. You've then got the urban air that has popped up over there. I mean, there's another entertainment district that's kind of nascent going on in towards the Montecillo area, but that could even be having a more direct connection if they ever finally get those exits built. So trying to make this into a whole entertainment region of town, I don't know, maybe that'd be a better way to put it. The idea of adding more into it, because if you haven't been to Monkey Rocks, not an endorsement, but it's an interesting thing. They got bowling, some of those VR rooms, some things that are like bays, kind of like Top Golf, but it's virtual. They've got climbing. They talk about it in the story here as well. And then neon mini golf. I haven't tried that one myself. Mean to. It's on one of my lists. So the fact that all of this is available, and of course the owners and operators of Monkey Rock, also the ones putting in that aquarium with the interactive features kind of on the other end of Sunland Park Mall, over where the Old Navy used to be, if anyone recalls that. So there's entertainment possibilities. And as much as you got to have a reality to it, often just the concept of this is a place to go to get entertainment can be a very powerful one. So his decision, and again, I didn't even know it was for sale, that was something that you could do, but I guess you got that level of money, then it's anything can be done if money is no object. Though I have a sneaking suspicion, as much as purchase price is not a part of this, and it's also noted that Simon Properties was once the owner of Sunland Park Mall. It was then placed in the Washington Prime Group, which filed for bankruptcy in 2021. So it's been a little bit of trials and tribulations going on for this mall, right? So the ability to buy it, I'm going to guess that he got a pretty good price on it. At the very least, not what it was during its heyday, so to speak. But the interesting note there is also that all of the anchor stores, so the ones not along the walkways, are actually owned by the operators of those. So like Dillard's owns its own space. I'm assuming that means that Monkey Rock and those other places, Star Western Wear, owns its section already previous to this. So the possibility of it is, well, it's encouraging. I'm always encouraged by development and things happening around here, because as much as I've said a previous phrase, instability breeds further instability. Growth can spur further growth. And if people are willing to embrace this, we'll see how it works out. And saying that the interior is going to get new finishes, they're going to work on a new facade. And again, that new name of it, the Shops at Solano, or as Ed Clore is saying it, Solano Mall. We'll see. I have a feeling people are still going to refer to it the mall at Sunland Park or something like that. I'm going to change some of the lines we use in some of the endorsements and other ads that we have, but it's an interesting possibility. And some others saying that, Flaco Mina saying, I've been there in years. Last I remember, it was a place for elderly women to walk. I mean, I've definitely gotten my steps in there as well. They still got the marker saying, if you get your starting point, which I want to say is in the food court, if I'm not mistaken, how far you've walked. So it's still a nice indoor space. So actually making it commercially viable, another interesting possibility as well. The most times I've been out there recently have been for the times you've heard us with the trucks with the meat on them previously. It's the most time I've ended up spending there, I got to say. So that's an interesting development possibility here in town. But of course, there's a lot more going on in and around the Borderland, including further development and further efforts going along. And of course, what is going on at the State House. So let's talk about that a little bit further here after this break, because what the Texas legislature is working on, potentially, finally, maybe a deal when it comes to property taxes and how they will agree upon them. Talk more about that after this break. A lot more people chiming in, including George Zavala with the good afternoon, and Austin Redfern. Good afternoon to Talk El Paso fans. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. But taking that next break right now, coming out of this break, we'll talk more about the things going on and affecting us here in the Borderlands. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Traffic slowing down on the I-10 eastbound from Trowbridge back to the Patriot with minor delays. A stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder at Trowbridge. I-10 westbound at Kansas, watch for work crew vehicles blocking the right shoulder. Eastbound on Montana Avenue, Yarborough out to Desert Meadows, 7-minute delays. It's a 5-minute delay northbound Zaragoza from the Loop to Montana. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples has big savings on everything you need for school. And right now, save up to $250 on select computers at Staples. School savings are always in session. In-store only. Offer ends July 29. See an associate for details. School on, save on at Staples.
Getting a news feed on your phone while driving
makes driving more difficult.
This is dangerous.
Getting a news feed without a computer or mobile device?
It would be impossible.
Unless, of course, you get your live news feeds at the top and bottom of the hour.
It's easy.
Traffic and weather all day.
It's as simple as that.
Trending stories tend to change.
Every minute of every day.
Twice an hour, we'll feed your curiosity.
Stay informed. Shouldn't we listen? They're hungry.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
What's holding you back from learning the language you've always wanted to know?
Too hard.
Takes too long.
Not with Babbel. Babbel's lessons take just 15 minutes a day.
15 minutes isn't long.
Nope. And they're fun.
Fun isn't hard.
Right. Babbel's interactive lessons, podcasts, games, and more make it fun and engaging, so you don't realize you're learning a language, but you are. And Babbel's lessons are built around real life. You can choose from topics like travel, business, relationships, and more. You'll learn what matters most to you. Plus, Babbel's lessons are designed to get you speaking right away. In 3 weeks, you're able to start having conversations.
Just 3 weeks? Even better.
Since Babbel's lessons are designed by language experts and voiced by real native speakers, you'll get the accents just right and be able to carry on conversations with confidence.
Learning a language with Babbel doesn't take long.
And with Babbel, it isn't hard.
It's perfect.
And now, try Babbel free at Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
The teacher said she was daydreaming. Stacy.
He is extra sensitive, and there is no in-between for him.
Are you wondering why your child is struggling? It might be a sign of a learning or thinking difference like ADHD or dyslexia. Some kids are wired differently, but all kids can thrive with the right support. Talk with your pediatrician to find answers and explore solutions. The American Academy of Pediatrics and Understood.org are here to help. Visit understood.org/iHeart for tools and resources.
Recently, we hit the streets and found out how informed people really are.
Yes, I'm on top of events.
Most news, yes.
Except for these two.
I am not on top of events.
I'm not on top of my events, no.
They were clueless that every morning they can plug into the world with the news, weather, and traffic info that'll make their lives so much easier and more informed. Just like you and I do. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
That huge data breach from a few weeks ago has probably moved off your radar, but your information could still be on the dark web. LifeLock alerts you to suspicious activity, like someone using your info. If there's a problem, LifeLock's US-based identity restoration specialists will work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions, but LifeLock will help protect your identity long after this breach is forgotten. Save up to 25% your first year. Use promo code NEWS at lifelock.com.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know.
Hey, look. Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.tv, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And I'm often never quite prepared for the comments that come in, including a debate right now over the Cat Cafe at Sunland Park Mall, which Umber Banda saying hope they keep it, and RJ sounding a little bit incredulous / dubious on the concept, saying I'm almost scared to ask. And are there litter boxes provided? Oh boy, there's a whole lot going on there. But it's also y'all out of pocket is all I'm going to say at that point here. See the comments for yourself over, if you can, safely do so by going to Facebook primarily where these come in, but also those other pages. Also with Angel Rueda with the Happy Monday with throwing out the picks up. Sounds good. I think that's another good one. And interesting other comment coming in. Maria Kalman saying, I think Mayor Leeser stated he has loaned the city one of his cars. The vehicle's from the dealership. This is a conflict of interest, and is the practice accepted? I want to know more about where you're sourcing that one from. If you got like a recent newscast or something you heard that in, because I know previously that there have been, particularly with like sponsorships, there was the Hyundai Sun Bowl, of course, all of those things. So they were using the cars and then also selling the cars to get a car used during the Sun Bowl. I don't know. That's been one of the things. So yeah, that's what comes to mind immediately as having been previously use of those vehicles by it. But I mean, it's worth looking into. So hadn't heard that source just yet. But yeah, of course, a lot of conversation about the mall, Sunland Park Mall, again, soon to be the Shops at Solana, what it'll be called, which again, I'm willing to go and check it out. The food court has been a little, well, if I'm not mistaken, I think that even one of the like ubiquitous Chinese, Asian in general places that exist in malls, last I checked it, I'm not sure if that was still in operation. If that's not a bad sign for a mall, that even the place that sells egg rolls isn't in operation anymore, I don't know what is. So I'm in favor of business development and revitalization in general. So I'll be excited to see the possibilities that come out of this, even if the implementation may take a while. Again, there could be some facade work and other things for that on there. But of course, one of the major stories that we've been talking about, besides of course the heat, like I think someone just said as they're greeting there, they're saying hot enough for you. Oh yeah, Eric von Holstein Rathlow there. Good afternoon. It's hot, but y'all already know that. It absolutely is. But one of the other long simmering situations, going on technically longer than this streak, 24, I guess 25 days now of triple digit heat, has been the long suffering deal on property taxes within the state legislature. So a bunch of reporting coming out on this today that as of today, there has been a tentative deal reached to actually see something done on this. Again, it's been this whole ridiculous situation where the agreement in concept on property tax relief, and particularly from the school district aspect of it, but making sure that their budgets stay more or less the same, but also reducing the property tax burden on individual homeowners and property taxpayers in Texas in general has been a focus. But the devil is always in the details, and trying to find that deal, find how they structure it so that it works. Well, it's been as complicated as you would have expected with even just that description right now. So specific reporting from El Paso Matters on this right now, that it's an $18 billion compromise finally struck as a deal today. It includes more than $5 billion approved for property tax relief in 2019 and would lower taxes of the state's 5.7 million homeowners and add a temporary cap on appraisal increases for some non-homestead exempted properties. So more specifically saying that, well, among other things, Dan Patrick, Lieutenant Governor, saying that it's been a long road, but it's a great day for all property owners. May have taken overtime. My note, no kidding, continuing on with his quote, but the process to produce a great bill for homeowners and businesses. Going on to note that it would also cut taxes to small businesses and send billions of dollars to school districts so they can cut their tax rates across the board, according to what state leaders are saying, such as Texas House Speaker Dade Phelan saying reducing property taxes, providing relief to small business owners, and reforming our appraisal system will ensure economic growth and prosperity. This agreement is a significant victory for all Texans. Now, of course, the major sticking point up to this point had basically been on how do you accomplish this, with the House's version basically being, all right, we're going to try to do some appraisal caps, some formulaic changes, whereas the plan from the Senate that, again, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick was very much saying, no, this is the only reasonable way to do this, and leads to, I think the line he was going with, $700 more a year in savings for the average property homeowner specifically in Texas, as opposed to property owners in general, which would include rental properties, other businesses, etc. That for homeowners, by doubling the homestead exemption, which of course can only be done on a primary residence. Now, there's basically elements of both of this. It kind of feels like We wanted one. They said we could have three. So we compromised and decided on six. It kind of feels like that because the homestead exemption increase will go from $40,000 for standard homeowners to $100,000 actually. And there is also going to be a savings on franchise taxes for small businesses. And there is going to be $12 billion to reduce property tax rate for homeowners and businesses as part of this. There's also a pilot circuit breaker program, as it's being referred to, that's for residential commercial properties valued at $5 million and under. And so some of the money also includes the rest of that, I think $5 or $6 billion would be getting sent directly to individual school districts on a formula, I think TBD on this one, that would then basically make up for the back of it. Basically make it so that even though they're talking about reducing the property taxes when it comes to, again, primarily the school districts, which of course is the focus of the homestead exemption, making it so that their budgets can still, I guess, maintain themselves. So it's still a complicated proposal to get from here. And again, there's some possibilities. I'm not going to call this a done deal just yet, given past experience. But as again noted by El Paso Matters here, the new property tax bill, the franchise tax relief bill, and the constitutional amendment required to enact the cuts planned to be filed today, Phelan's office said in a statement, Speaker of the House for the Texas legislature there. So complicated enough, two parts to it, and a constitutional amendment. Okay, constitutional amendments in Texas are not the same kind of it's not with a capital C and a capital A in this case. Constitutional amendments pass fairly often here in Texas. In fact, we had one, in an off-year election since the 2022 midterm election. So they come and go. And if you missed that one, again, I'm upset with you. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed, but we'll talk about this one. This one ends up coming up. It's not a done deal just yet. Abbott's office has not responded to a request for comment on this, but given that this has been one of his banner issues this whole session, this whole special session and the previous session, and technically the main session before that point, I don't see him shying away from this or saying, no, I don't like this deal, go back and do it, because it is not a guarantee that it's going to go back and be done. It feels like there was, as much as, well, frankly, a lot of the stuff ended up happening, most of the priorities seem like they were achieved, if not totally satisfied with the scope on it, even though I got some questions about that $100,000 homestead exemption, because doubling it was the plan before. But I'm not saying I'm unhappy about it. Do not get me wrong on that point. It just seems like, why couldn't this have been done in the first place if y'all ended up agreeing on it anyway? Was there a certain pain point that had to be received? But I don't know. As again noted by El Paso Matters and Texas Tribune, among others, the main dividing line came over whether homeowners or business owner would get the biggest tax rate. And again, the House side of it, they wanted the tax rate compression, which would have been across the board cuts, and then primarily, again, Dan Patrick saying that they wanted to put it into primarily for homeowners through the homestead exemption. Though this also does, because you got to remember, as we talked about it when this special session was called at the start of this month, there were the 2 points that was put forth by Greg Abbott. And this could be the sticking point, but I got to give the governor a little bit more credit than this to allow him to stand on ceremony as opposed to actually achieving the deal that is both already being lauded by the divided parties on this and achieves his own goal, at least one of them anyway, the point of seeing lasting property tax relief happen for Texas taxpayers. This achieves that, arguably. Well, we'll see if anyone comes up with things against this, but it doesn't technically go towards his second part. Well, maybe towards it. He, of course, wants to chart a path towards seeing property tax elimination in Texas. Now, I'm not really aware if they can do that anything aside from the school district portion of it, though it has been a concept that has been floated, at least one potential. I don't think he's declared yet, but Don Huffines, who we had on the show during his previous gubernatorial race run, challenging Governor Greg Abbott, kind of coming from the right towards him, which was an interesting standpoint to take, trying to find any little bit of daylight between the governor and his base. He's already saying we need to eliminate property taxes in Texas. Now, of course, there are some aspects that can be done, the relief being done, the money being sent to the school districts done with that. But if you ever take the time to go and study your tax bill, like you can, I spend more time than the average person, I'm fully willing to say, over at EPCAD, the El Paso Central Appraisal District website. The homestead exemption applies to the school district, but not to the other 5 or maybe even 6, I think up maybe at most it's 7 in our region well, the Texas side of our region anyway. I'm not going to pretend to be fully familiar with the New Mexico side of things, but of course this doesn't apply to them. But for the Texas side and for most people here, you're like to have 5 to 7 taxing entities, and so you got a lot of other ones on there, including the city of El Paso, the county of El Paso, El Paso Community College, and if you're like in a water improvement district, those kind of things, UMC, El Paso County Hospital District, etc. All those have their own slice of the tax dollar pie, right? And the homestead exemption only goes towards the school district part of it. So how that would actually be achievable, if it could be achievable without, say, significant changes to the Texas Constitution, among other things, I'm dubious on that part, but at the very least, RJ asking, no property taxes, then what? 20% sales tax and income tax? The argument is that there would be more of the excise use taxes. So that's been kind of playing into one of the things that's been talked about. Of course, there's the whole pay at the pump and the idea of if you're using a service, you should be paying for that service. So that's the reason that gas taxes exist, so that you are essentially paying for the roads that you're on, though with the potential advent, we'll see how that ends up working out of electric vehicles. I mean, I see plenty of Teslas and other electric vehicles, or at least hybrids, plug-in types driving around town. They're not exactly the most prevalent type of vehicle on our roadways in this area, or really most of the parts of Texas. So the idea of that and of there being on the registration for electric vehicles, some hundreds of dollars added on in order to include that. That's the kind of concept. But sales tax and there have been a lot of, I will say that maybe on the sales tax, 20% sounds like political suicide to me. But on the idea of an income tax in Texas, I got to say, I don't think there's a quicker way to get yourself as close to tarred and feathered as happened this day in the state of Texas anyway, than to be the hapless politician that suggests an income tax. If anything, Texas has moved even further away from an income tax with certain recent, not the most recent ones, but in previous constitutional amendment elections, it being basically trying to tie the knots even tighter when it comes to making it impossible to have an income tax in Texas. Now, of course, politically, nothing is ever truly impossible, but making it damn difficult in more than, like, say, a one-step process. If it takes more than one, it's a difficult. It's not going to be a fun time for anyone trying to get the income tax implemented in Texas. Let's just put it that way. And RJ taking a very dismal view of that, about saying we will pay rent versus own, buy, gas, drive, and live, breathe, and eat. I mean, some way we're going to, but how it's structured in the elimination of the property taxes, because there's very much that, I'm not going to call it totally a libertarian line, but the idea of why does it cost you money just to exist, and do you ever truly own your home, very much influencing not even just the underlying idea, but the stated concepts coming out from some of the gubernatorial candidates and Abbott himself here. So let's go ahead and take that next break right now. We got a little bit more to talk about, more impacts coming to El Paso, and a lot more response to this situation we'll continue delving into. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Phone lines here in a bit, as we normally do. And of course, a whole lot more discussion about the things going on and affecting us here in the Borderland on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. Sunland Park Mall has been sold to the president and owner of Star Western Wear. The new owner is Enoch Kimmelman. The new owner says he's going to rename the mall to the Shops at Solana. Kimmelman says his team has an innovative and creative vision for the mall, which includes converting it and making it a place for entertainment, food, and shopping. The triple-digit temperatures continue in the Borderland, and some El Pasoans are taking advantage of the city-run bus terminals to keep cool. Each of the Sun Metro transit centers come equipped with free Wi-Fi, restrooms, and most importantly, air conditioning, which makes them a good place to find refuge if people don't have air conditioning at home. Along with the air conditioning, it also offers parking and the purchase of Brio passes. There are 8 different transit centers located throughout the city of El Paso. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Traffic's starting to slow down on Loop 375 in the lower valley at Zaragoza exit, but there's no validated accident there, just slow traffic. Eastbound Montana Avenue from McRae out to Desert Meadows is a 10-minute delay, and it's heavy on Zaragoza northbound between the Loop and Montana. Less than a 5-minute delay there. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Hot temperatures going to continue. Weather warned for heat. We also have the excessive heat warning in effect through Thursday. Partly cloudy for your Tuesday. 20% chance of a thunderstorm for tomorrow. High around 108 degrees. High back around 108 for your Wednesday. 20% chance of a storm. We'll see partly cloudy skies. Continued hot for your Thursday. High around 109. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Now 60 seconds on money-making scams and frauds. From the Federal Trade Commission, this is Sam Levine, the director of the Bureau of Consumer Protection. Sam, let's talk about reporting fraud. Now, reports help the FTC find scammers to sue. But why else should people report scams? And could you talk about how it relates to our communities?
The FTC definitely uses reports to help find and build cases and to help target our education and outreach. Those on their own are good reasons to report scams. But telling your story can also help your friends, family, and community avoid scams. The more we talk about the scams that target our communities, the more likely we are to spot and avoid them. It is really easy to tell your story at reportfraud.ftc.gov. And once you do, you'll get advice on how to recover if you paid a scammer and how to protect yourself against fraud.
Why don't you repeat that website one more time, Sam?
reportfraud.ftc.gov.
Lowe's is always bringing pros more ways to save. Right now, get up to 40% off select bathroom faucets and vanities. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Valid 7/6 through 7/12 while supplies last. Selection varies by location, U.S. only. This report is sponsored by Lowe's.
KTSM AM El Paso is News Radio 690, an iHeart radio station.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. Be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on pretty much all of those. And a lot of conversations going on, particularly about property tax, but also Amanda Moncada joining us over from the Twitch stream. Hello to you as well. Appreciate you chiming in that way. But, I mean, it's been a contentious issue, this whole property tax and the wide-ranging and wide-reaching implications that it could have, even if this is honestly, this is a more expansive plan, the one that they have finally come down onto than any of the real proposals were. So, yeah, it definitely feels like that. So, what was that? I think it was a quote from Winston Churchill back when he was still with the Great Britain Navy, Royal Navy. Was we wanted 5 battleships. They said we could only have 3 battleships, so we settled on 8 battleships. It feels like that kind of a logic going on with it here. Of course, it's not about spending money as much. I mean, there's a surplus to be spent, so that was always the kind of, well, if you can pass anything, why do it within limits? That was absolutely the aspect of it, of that, well, we've only got so much surplus, and, I mean, there's like $33 billion, so the estimates kind of vary wildly depending on how you slice it. So this would be a little bit more than about half of that, maybe just a bit over half of that total amount then. So it's a significant investment that they're looking at. So some other commentary coming in like a Flaco Jimenez saying, I've said this before, having lived in New Mexico, we have income tax and low property taxes. High property taxes in Texas, they're going to get you either way. And I mean, there's an argument to be made, but if they were to see some level of relief when it comes to property taxes. I know that has been, as we're talking about development, businesses moving in, the idea of then getting in and getting essentially the groundwork, literal groundwork on the ground, and like your pads, your facilities, all of that built out, can be then incredibly expensive because of then those property tax costs that come along with it. Maria Coleman adding in that even if you qualify for all the exemptions, you're only allowed to take 2. El Paso has the second highest property taxes in Texas, depending on how you slice it, because I mean, I think the average, the rate is higher here, though the amount paid pales in comparison to, say, like, Dallas or Houston, but there's, different ways to slice it. I'm not saying I'm happy about the taxes we pay around this region and the fact that they, except for that kind of blip in the midst of the pandemic, have basically always gone up, or at the best been kept level in some cases around here. Well, if you want to go along with that argument as well, technically property taxes from the county went down over the course of the pandemic, but again, different issue. Also, Richard Janicek responding to Flaco Mena saying, yeah, taxes are high here, but at least here in Texas, we don't have to file a state income tax annually. And again, that's a sticking point for a lot of people, not having that state income tax. And I've seen various people trying to analyze, like, okay, what if I think the worst way to do it would be to work in New Mexico and then live in Texas. So some people trying to do it the other way around, live in New Mexico and work in Texas. But I'm not going to pretend to be a tax attorney or advice giver. And John Browson is suggesting, as he has, saying Texas needs a constitutional amendment limiting how much money state and local politicians can spend each year. Again, considering that the politicians would then have to pass that, I mean, if you figure out a referendum way to do it, full speed ahead. But most of the stuff I've seen on Texas constitutional amendments have come out of legislation like this. So given that it would be politicians doing it, you'd either have to have one real end run, knowing that you're not going to make any friends in the state house, or just enough popular support to ride a wave on it. I'm not going to hold my breath on it in any case. RJ also saying, I see schools here in Northeast getting remodeled in the last few years. Are the kids getting smarter, though? That's a related, if separate, issue, because a lot of those end up coming from, I mean, anytime you see those renovations, major facility changes, odds are that's coming from some kind of bond project. Of course, we did have a spate of those. So in Northeast, I'd guess you might either be EPISD or maybe YISD, if I'm remembering my maps correctly. So they've all had bonds recently, so it fits either way, with, of course, then the potential has been mentioned by, say, the local Texas American Federation of Teachers here in El Paso, possibility of another bond for EPISD, because it's coming up on, okay, what was that? Like 2016, 2017. So it's close enough that I'm sure they're willing to call it. More commentary. So yeah, Trito Sack saying it's total $18 billion, but that includes $5.3 billion of old relief from 2019. So okay, 2019 is the new relief. It's a sleight of hand to make us believe we're actually more than we actually are. You're absolutely right. I did read that part there. So it's a whole package, with the package is like, well, I gave you your present earlier. It kind of feels like that, I guess. Mondo Moncada saying, I don't mind paying some property tax for local services. And another way to doing it the wrong way, unfortunately, saying I was the opposite, lived in Texas, but worked in New Mexico, just worked out the way. Oh, and RJ clarifying that he is EPISD. So yeah, no, that makes sense. But the question is, rarely is the question asked, is our children learning? Is always going to live with me as a quote I'll never forget. A couple of things I want to mention before we end up getting towards the end of this segment, and of course into the next one and getting onto those phone lines, is a couple of pretty important stories are percolating around the region, including the fact that, UTEP has some problematic things going on, including specifically some potential problems with their accreditation. According to our news partners over at KFOX 14, specifically, pulling up the full story of it here, just blanked out on me. Specifically, the story is that they've gotten some clerical issues, is what it's being called, finding themselves maybe in the position of having, again, issues with the accreditation. Okay, we'll go specifically with El Paso Inc. over on this one then. Yeah, UTEP gets warning on accreditation status over quote-unquote clerical issues, that they're being, what the university official is saying that this is attributing it to, quote, minor issues, end quote, and expect to be resolved. That according to a disclosure statement issued June 23rd by the commission, the Southern Association of Colleges and School Commission on Colleges, as is run by the Department on Redundancy Department, kind of sounds like. They're saying that they have failed to demonstrate compliance with core requirements of the accreditor, including full-time faculty, program length, qualified administrative academic officers, and program coordination. In a statement provided to El Paso Inc., specifically, the SACS, Southern Association of Colleges, and schools on colleges, saying, quote, the university says on this one, quote, "We are working closely with our accreditor to address the minor issues and expect them to be resolved in a timely fashion with the submission of additional documentation in September as requested. The educational quality at UTEP has never been stronger. UTEP has outstanding faculty that continue to develop and deliver strong curriculum. We're graduating record numbers of students. Our alumni are in high demand by employers across the globe, and the scope of our reach has never been greater." Also, a letter sent by the SACS COC to UTEP President Heather Wilson says that UTEP provided minimal data regarding full and part-time faculty members, credit hours, and number of students. So maybe it is a reporting requirement, but definitely something that needs to be resolved, because that sounds like if it's just a reporting requirement not being met, just get that done with. And the fact that it got to this level or had to be a headline is a little bit embarrassing, I do have to say, not even just for the organization, but kind of for the community, I would have to say. So that's some of the things going on and affecting us here in our region, and definitely of significance in their own right. A whole lot more reporting and other things going on in our region. Of course, one that I did mention that, speaking of tax expenditures, I didn't want to miss out on this because it came out Friday, but it's definitely worth its own mention, that Tommy Gonzalez, as much as El Paso Inc. had their interview with him on his out-the-door whole situation, may be headed for Midland at this point. That Midland Mayor Lori Blong announcing that Gonzalez is the finalist for the position of city manager of Midland, a city of $131,000. The part that I haven't been able to find just yet is what that position would actually look like to be funded at that point. So was never totally not expecting that the now former city manager would be finding himself a location to end at, particularly with the it's been referred to by many as the golden parachute of that near as damn it $900,000 of compensation that he was duly owed. It's not like raiding the pantry on the way out kind of situation, but part of the whole compensation issues was part of the consternation, and I would say contributing, at least in its own way, to, as the new council came in beginning of this year, decision to exercise the termination without cause clause of his contract. So let's go and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we're going to go ahead and open those phone lines here, which, okay, y'all jumping on it today, actually just filled up. But keep that number handy, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Zaragoza, a stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder. An accident just reported now at Gateway West and Yarborough. Slow traffic Montana, eastbound McRae out to Desert Meadows, and it's slow on northbound Zaragoza, starting at the loop up to Montana Avenue, 5-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
In this week's Marketers Report, Chris Brandt, Chief Marketing Officer at Chipotle Mexican Grill, weighs in on the power of audio.
We've used audio to reinforce what we're showing on TV, what we're showing in other digital channels. When your priority is driving reach, boy, everybody seems to listen to the radio.
As the #1 audio company, iHeartMedia gives marketers access to the audiences, conversations, trusted influencers, insights, and data you need to grow. If you're a marketer, go to iHeartResults.com.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to 4hims.com/radio. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right. Get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, forhims.com/radio. That's forhims.com/radio for your free online visit. forhims.com/radio.
If your business is feeling a summer hiring wave, then you need Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app. A lot of ways to interact with the show, particularly at this point during the program. When we do those phone lines open, if you're okay, full up at the moment, and we're short timing it here, so we're just going to do a comment roundup and then get into the call start of the next hour, such as a lot of people. Maria Coleman with an interesting point about how no state income tax primarily benefits those still employed, not retired individuals. That is an interesting point, though. Of course, there are, I don't know. There are further benefits because like the retired community does get an extended, the retirement homestead exemption benefits, which I will say I'm not sure if that applies for this current one. It was just a blanket homestead exemption increase. So, I mean, there's debate and discussion to be had there, certainly. And RJ and Maria Coleman also not too hot on UTEP there. RJ saying too many lazy professors. I mean, that might be a different issue, but I don't think it's part of the stats anyway. But Maria Coleman saying UTEP has low graduation rates. I mean, that has been an issue, at least in the stats, for a while, because UTEP's a little bit different. I mean, it's primarily a commuter school, and so we got a lot of people involved in their lives in the community. So I think that like the 4-year graduation rate has always been something that UTEP has not been stellar at. But the overall graduation rate of like finally, eventually completing a degree, which is not how the stats are usually done, is commiserate, if still not maybe 100% there either. And John Brazelton on the whole city manager maybe going to Midland, which a little bit further quote there from, again, the mayor of Midland and Odessa, or Midland City Council. I often think of it as Midland and Odessa, saying that we believe adding Mr. Gonzalez to our team will add to what we have already accomplished in Midland and what we have planned. On that note, our future is bright as we enjoy a strong financial position, a healthy fund balance, and a AAA bond rating. I'll also say that they're going to be doing that to debate and discussion and potentially approving his employment contract, which may then come with some of those compensation numbers as soon as tomorrow. So we'll see. But yeah, John Brosnan saying good. He'll love the smell of oil and other things about having a hard time finding an eyebrow threading service. Didn't know that was something he was noted for. But I mean, it's a smaller community, 131,000, but of course it's right there next to Midland. I will say that the housing prices over there, I believe, outstrip El Paso. At the very least it has. I mean, it's got that whole cyclical employment bust boom. Whenever you see the ads around our airwaves about, hey, come work in the oil industry, probably things means are getting dang expensive out there. But whenever you see like, you ever seen those like T-Rex cars? It's the 3-wheeled one, 2 wheels in front, 1 in the back. I see them around here sometimes. I think there's another brand like Slingshot or something like that. They have just dealerships for those. The part that I've been more into on the like New Mexico side of the Permian Basin is, well, there's a lot of money going out there in the $100,000 trucks, not even for business. Anyway, good luck to him, and we'll see how he works out for you there. So let's go and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to the calls as promised and a whole lot more, so stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break and the top of the hour news here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Zaragoza, a stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder. An accident just reported now at Gateway West and Yarborough. Slow traffic Montana, eastbound McRae out to Desert Meadows, and it's slow on northbound Zaragoza, starting at the loop up to Montana Avenue, 5-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Millions of kids in America depend on the meals they get at school. When school's out for the summer, many of those meals disappear. Kids and teens can get free meals right in their neighborhoods, provided by local schools and community groups. To find the nearest meal site for your children, just text the word food to 304-304 or go online to nokidhungry.org/help. No questions asked or registration required. This service is made possible by No Kid Hungry.
News on the hour and the hat. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Over 42 million Americans are under heat warnings this week. Extreme heat is already hitting the Southwest in states including California and Arizona, and the dangerous conditions are only expected to get worse. It's still not clear how a small bag of cocaine ended up in the White House. The Secret Service is continuing its investigation into who brought the drugs into the West Wing. White House officials last week promised appropriate consequences if anyone in the Biden administration is found to be responsible. Russian President Vladimir Putin met with the chief of the Wagner mercenary group in Moscow, days after the paramilitary group's June revolt. In Moscow, Daria Bondarchuk reports.
During the talks, which lasted almost 3 hours, President Putin gave an assessment to the company's actions on the front line in Ukraine and of the events of June 24. Prigozhin stood up against the Russian military establishment, seizing the city of Rostov-on-Don and sending his fighters on a march for justice towards Moscow. In his public address in June, President Putin called the march organizers traitors and promised them harsh punishments. Daria Bondarchuk, Moscow.
Summer gas prices have held steady nationwide. AAA's Brian Ortner says this is a welcome change from the traditional summer spike.
We're still hovering around that $70 per barrel range, a little bit above it as the week begins. But we look at the last week, even with the high demand, pump prices barely budged really over the past week, and that's even with more demand as people hit the road over the 4th of July holidays.
The nationwide average is around $3.54. That's 9 cents less than a week ago and 14 cents less than a month ago. The city of Memphis is trying to block a civil lawsuit filed by Tyree Nichols' mother and his estate. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. There's extensive damage and road closures all throughout parts of upstate New York after a huge amount of rain was dumped on the Northeast yesterday. Scott Pringle has more.
Orange County Executive Steve Newhouse may have gotten it the worst in Highland Falls, where so many vehicles, roads, and bridges and homes were flooded out and damaged, and numerous rescues had to be made.
Everybody here is pushing for a federal disaster declaration because we're going to need it. Easily tens of millions of dollars in damage here.
A woman was killed after being swept away as she escaped floodwaters from her home. Governor Kathy Hochul visited Highland Falls, calling the storm a 1,000-year event.
They will build back, and we'll be there with them every step of the way.
Thousands of children's bicycles are being recalled because of loose handlebars. The Consumer Product Safety Commission says Bikes USA is recalling about 84,000 WOM children's bikes after dozens of reports of the handlebars coming loose or detaching. The commission said the problem has resulted in 19 reported injuries, including cuts and abrasions. The bikes were sold on WOM.com, Amazon, and at local stores. Today is National Kitten Day.
Kittens are clinically proven to promote mental health, relieve stress. They're very entertaining to watch, and they grow up to be cool cats. PetPlace.com says no one will pass judgment on you if you have 3, but once you cross into that land of 4, you're entering crazy cat lady territory. Taylor Swift has 3, Drew Barrymore has 4, and men can be cat crazy people too. Matthew Perry has 13, Russell Brand 16. I'm Bree Tennis.
It looks like a man who was found dead inside a freezer in northeast Minnesota ended up there while hiding from police. Witnesses say Brandon Lee Bushman was last seen fleeing from the upstairs area of a home in Babbitt due to a possible police presence near the residence. Police say Bushman had a warrant out for his arrest. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1
$1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Bonus. That's bonus. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Now 60 seconds on money-making scams and frauds. From the Federal Trade Commission, this is Sam Levine, the director of the Bureau of Consumer Protection. Sam, who's losing money in these scams? Older adults?
I think there's a perception that older adults are more likely to lose money from scams, but that's actually not the case. While older adults tend to report fraud more, we actually see more frequent reports from younger people. One reason we think is a leading cause of complaints is social media, which we know young people are using a lot. Older people actually report these scams less frequently, but they tend to lose more money and they tend to be scammed by people over the phone. All consumers should take steps to protect themselves and report it to the FTC if they've been scammed. Go to reportfraud.ftc.gov and get some free resources and advice on how to protect yourself and protect your community.
Learn more about how to spot, avoid, and report frauds and scams at consumer.ftc.gov.
I have a hard time focusing, mostly in school.
When I struggle with reading, I'll get very frustrated.
Does your child say things like this? It might be a sign of a learning or thinking difference like ADHD or dyslexia. Some kids are wired differently, but all kids can thrive with the right support. Talk with your pediatrician to find answers and explore solutions. The American Academy of Pediatrics and Understood.org are here to help. Visit understood.org/iHeart for tools and resources.
Only iHeartRadio gives you access to all of your favorite radio stations.
Rover's Morning Glory.
It's The Woody Show.
It's Elliot in the Morning.
All of the once-in-a-lifetime events. iHeartRadio Music Festival. All of the best free curated playlists.
It's everything that rocks.
All of the great podcasts for every interest.
This is Freddie Prinze Jr. from the Wrestling with Freddie podcast.
All of the mind-blowing contests.
$20,000.
Awesome. All of your favorite superstars.
This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters.
Best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. Get on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of conversations, phone lines full up as well, so keep that number handy if you wanted to chime in that way throughout the rest of the program. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM, including a couple interesting questions like Austin Redfern asking, is Diana Natalicio still among us, or she left the planet? She did pass away in September of 2021. We did, of course, El Paso History Radio show on her time and her legacy, and specifically about the Natalicio collection of her books and many collected items over the years that was actually being a part of, I think, going towards her estate, bought from that, but also being packaged as such, continuing on the legacy. So other commentary coming in, such as Richard Janicek saying, Oklahoma withholds state income tax from my oil lease payments that I have to file annually, and I'm retired. Interesting. And RJ saying also have oil leases in North Texas around Bowie. They stopped producing after Biden took office. What a coincidence. I mean, sure, if you're going to go that way about it. But of course, there's okay, when I was down in Houston, I haven't talked about this, but there was a very interesting at the Houston Museum of Natural Sciences. A very interesting, the top floor is this whole exhibit around oil and gas energy production in general in Texas, but oil and gas primarily focused, including, I should have taken a picture of it. I didn't think about it until afterwards, but there's this one exhibit they have as part of it. It's very pro-oil, in case there was any question about that. But the amount of money put into it, it's the most expensive gallery in that damn building by a long shot, I'd be willing to bet. Among other things, there was a giant, what looked like a drill head that was just on the ceiling and spinning. Like, it wasn't a real one, but like a, I don't know, resin plastic recreation of one. But the size of it was like the size of a real one, or at the very least a zoomed up one, probably bigger than life size. I'm going to call it about the size of this room I'm in right now was that drill head, and it's above you and spinning. So it was an interesting one. So yeah, oil and gas still very much a focus here in Texas. So again, good luck to Tommy Gonzalez and with dealing with that side of issues and the potential for Midland. But of course, we got those phone lines right now, so let's dive back into those. One more comment I'll say is that Eric von Holstein Rathlow saying we've built shrines to education in brick and mortar, but are failing to the actual education part. Administration is heavy and teachers are light. Often a criticism that comes up, particularly when we're talking about these school boards or potential bonds for it. But let's get into those phone lines right now. Again, that number to call, full up at the moment, but keep it handy, 915-544-5876-544 KTS. And we do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, I hope you're right, but it isn't over until the fat lady sings. Democrats introduced on Friday in the Texas House a Bill 62 and a companion joint resolution, which will give a permanent annual raise of $4,300 for all teachers. That means every teacher will get $4,300 for the next millennium.
Okay.
Further, under the Democrats' property tax package, homeowners would be eligible for a homestead exemption of $100,000,
right,
or an amount equivalent to 25% of their home's value, though that exemption would be capped at $200,000, which means somebody owning a home of $800,000 would get a homestead exemption of $200,000.
Right. Oh, okay.
Now, current homestead exemptions exist for people homeowners over 65
as well,
homeowners with disabilities, and disabled veteran homeowners. Now, this is going to include everybody from now on, all homeowners. Also, renters would be offered a 10% tax rebate of the annual rent they have paid if they have rented their primary residence from the same landlord over a 12-month period. And it sort of seems like everything that they're doing is, looking at Austin, because an Austin representative said she cited the figures that showed consistent rent increases across Texas, major metropolitan areas. She said that the Democrats' bill would be a response to help Austinites grapple with skyrocketing rent costs.
Yeah, that property, the pilot's property tax rebate program. I mean, that has been one of the considerations in all this, as much as we've talked about it here. That, I mean, sure, homestead exemptions, those things can be useful, but if you think that you don't care about property taxes just because you don't pay them, it doesn't mean that you don't pay them, because if you're renting, if you are at all occupying space that you don't own, you're still paying it in some way, because there's no one that's not going to then pass along that cost. So all the property taxes we talk about end up still being paid for by someone. I will say, I think I may have misheard you. You might be mistaken that there is homestead exemptions that apply to everyone on their primary residence, and then there are additional ones that are for 65 and up.
Okay, I might have been wrong about that. But and also, compensation was supposed to pass in Austin ISD, a compensation package that was 7% salary increase for teachers and counselors, which could result, according to figures, a $54 million budget deficit. Are people in El Paso going to be, supporting the people in Houston, Austin, Dallas, San Antonio?
Short answer, no, though I'm sure there's, of course, a ways to be talked about it. But I will say specifically Houston, this is one we didn't end up bringing up today, but the Texas Tribune has reporting on it. Houston ISE's state-appointed superintendent will cut over 500 jobs. So let me just say it this way. I mean, previously we had with EPISD, we had that state board of trustees that was installed after significant mismanagement / criminality that was happening with the leadership at that time. So the state has not shown an unwillingness to step in and say, okay, y'all are messing up, And I mean, among other things, budgetary concerns can be a part of that here. The superintendent, Mike Miles' plan is going to cut 500 to 600 positions from academics related departments and 40 from human resources, according to the Texas Tribune here. So cutting 30% of current positions, about 3% of which were vacant in that situation. So this is to say that, I mean, sure, in the interim, and if they're getting taxpayer money, there's an argument to be made that it's taxpayer money, so we're paying for it out of our pocket anyway. But just because saying, well, we spent this money, you better give it to us, isn't necessarily an argument that also flies or is functional here in Texas. I'll just put it that way.
And the average Austin home value is $567,000.
Oh yeah, there's big
What's
differences.
the average home value in El Paso, Texas?
Last concrete I saw, it was about 180, but I think we're now into the 200,000s in El Paso. So I want to say like probably around 210 to 230 at this point, though I don't recall the last time I looked at that data, but that's definitely what we were approaching.
Okay. One last thing, with a U.S. economy that is failing, and 9% of Texas GDP comes from the oil and gas industry, where's all this money going to come from?
I mean,
they're doing everything they can to destroy the oil and gas industry in Texas.
I mean, the whole pushes and stuff happening naturally. I know that's an ongoing conversation. And of course, the whole push that the governor had been hinting at and then went full-fledged into with this, the instructions for this special legislative session was towards. He's not asking for it to be accomplished because even within one session of regular session of the legislature, more than a month long, I think that I would just say it's not going to happen to eliminate property taxes in Texas. But that is the not even just $1 million, but the several billion-dollar question is, okay, if you're going to eliminate property taxes, the main funding mechanism for which primarily local institutions get, how are you going to accomplish that? But here's the thing. At the state level, and they're looking at basically what has happened in this time frame. I mean, think about the money from this biennium, the last couple of years that went into this legislative session. It came from a couple of years that were firmly in still the impacts and the economic shocks, not even just in the aftershocks that we're still feeling, of course, but in the immediate aftermath, and even still coming directly from the pandemic, the business shutdowns and all things like that. It was expected to be a pretty lean session. That was what a lot of the prognostication was anyway. And this ended up being a blockbuster budget session because of that huge multi-tens of billions of dollars surplus. And so the question is, how did that come about? You may think, well, because the property taxes kept increasing, and yet that doesn't go into the state coffers. The property taxes, it's as much as this has been a complicated issue, then one of the arguments has been, well, why can't you just deal with it? Maybe take less money, less into the surplus. The state is not the one that sets the property taxes. Of course, obviously, they've got some authority, though there's also going to have to be, again, as part of this package. And yeah, I'm not going to hold my breath on it or, stop thinking it's not going to be a thing until the fat lady sings, like you said. It still requires a constitutional amendment to even accomplish part of what they're doing here. So it's a complicated issue, make no bones about it. But the state surplus does not come from the property taxes. It comes from all those uses taxes. So we're talking about the state registrations, excise fees, licensing, and of course, sales tax. Sales tax is primarily the big one, and which is why it's kind of a complicated economic picture, or at least has been in Texas, is because the sales tax continued on strong. And that's one of the primary places that this surplus came from. Now, of course, the argument is, can that really be expected, that model to continue in future years if we continue having these economic upheavals, this whole spending, if not jobs, economy recovery, the weirdness that has existed over the last couple of years? Can that really be something that you build as a bedrock of onto your future system? Yeah, I think there's a little bit of dubiousness that is reasonable to take there. But on the idea of basically moving towards usage fees as a general concept, that's basically the underpinning of this concept that the governor and, again, others have been putting forth for in differing timeframes, but definitely much more recently.
Okay. Can you foresee a possible shortfall in revenues for the state of Texas to take care of all the things they want to do?
I mean, therein lies the rub.
We've got this big, huge bunch of money that we need to spend. So we're going to spend it.
Sure.
But so what happens in the future with all the things that are coming at us?
I mean, that is the question. It kind of feels like not even putting all of your eggs in one basket, but you're even taking some other eggs from other baskets to put into this one that you didn't really have control over. That's part of the argument going on with the state level of funding, sending more money to the school districts in order to cause them to lower their tax rates, right? You're then taking more onto this state revenue situation than it was necessarily designed for. Now, of course, this is not to say that it's technically improper. They're looking to maybe design around it, but that is the major question. And frankly, the debate around this, and where, as much as this agreement is, again, tentative, we'll be very interested to see what the governor says, hopefully by tomorrow, if he's going to allow this or not. Again, I think he'd be foolish not to. At the very least, it would be not a good look for him, but we'll see. There have been stranger things that have happened in these recent sessions. Like, don't forget the fact that he ended up vetoing about 70 bills in order to be like, y'all better be good or I'm going to take my ball and go home, and then did it because they did not come to the agreement on this in the previous special session. So there's been weirder things already happening just this year in the legislature. But I don't think he would unapprove this one without a damn good reason. And even then, I think he'd be hard-pressed to disapprove it. But that's why he's saying let's chart a course towards doing that. But that's why even Dan Patrick, his lieutenant governor, and of course, head of the Texas Senate, has been saying that's not reasonable. That's not feasible. We cannot structure Texas this way. So that by no means is a done deal by any method, even if it's probably something I expect the governor will campaign on.
Well, I just hope House Bill 62 goes the way of the dodo bird. Anyway, stay well, stay safe. God bless. And let's go, Brandon.
All right. Appreciate the board on the call. You have a good one there as well.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, I mean, again, if you want to get into some serious issues and actually discuss it, we can absolutely do that. But if you want to get on the line, add your 2 cents. That number, of course, to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Traffic's starting to slow down on Gateway East at Lee Trevino, but it's just a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Gateway West at North Yarborough, an accident reported there. El Paso Fire's responding to a crash eastbound Paisano at Copia. Slow traffic Montana, eastbound McRae, outside the loop to Desert Meadows, 10-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Inflation compensation is back.
Oh, yes.
Demand your supply of $1,000.
$1,000? Oh!
Just listen for the keywords to text in to win $1,000. Happening now.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour, 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. with the inflation compensation on News Radio 690 AM. Brought to you by Charlie Clark Nissan and Charlie Clark Infinity of El Paso. Orale!
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. If summer is heating up your hiring needs, then you need Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates all in one place. Sponsor your first job and get hiring today by visiting Indeed.com/credit.
Ruli's International Kitchen, your local bar and grill serving up brilliantly inspired international cuisine and local favorites with a gourmet twist for the everyday occasion and special celebrations daily. Now open for dinner Sundays and brunch every weekend. Soups and sandwiches to tapas with stunning main entrees. The favorites you know with new features at the front door daily. Just a great little gourmet dive. 4176 North Mesa Street near Executive Center Boulevard. Give them a call at 915-313-4806 or online at ruleysik.com. The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the Borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
You could throw your flip-flop at a bug.
Ew, a bug, get it.
But the chances of actually hitting it
Over there.
are statistically
It's still alive.
unlikely. Good thing nature's got your back. Stem bug killers combine powerful active ingredients found in plants, like lemongrass and geraniol, and scientifically engineer them into effective bug-fighting formulas, safe for use as directed around people, pets, and throughout the home. Stem, rooted in nature, optimized by science.
Blue Star medicated ointment gets 5-star reviews from our loyal users for fast relief of the pain and itch of almost any skin irritation.
Blue Star soothes insect bites and fungal infections.
It really works on the summer rashes I get every year.
I had psoriasis on my elbows. Blue Star worked wonders.
Amazing stuff. Smear a bit on and the itch is gone.
Look for the white box with the Blue Star in the first aid section. Feel Blue Star work fast or your money back.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Again, a lot of ways to interact with the show. Phone lines full up as they often are, but if you want to get on that line a little bit later, again, when one call ends, another line becomes available, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of conversation going on, including Marky Mandingo saying, remember going to the mall in 1989. Yeah, I would have been brand new at that point, talking about Sunland Park Mall. Of course, one of the big stories that I'm sure we'll be talking about with El Paso Inc. tomorrow. Planning on having on Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc., in order to talk about that reporting and some of the other big ones that have been not exactly under the radar, but there was a lot of focus last week, even as there are still lingering questions about what happens next, and even still technically more hearings in the whole August 3rd case, including what's the correct phrase for it? Remuneration, recuperation, restitution, probably closer to that one, in that it's planned for September, so it's not done, but of course, some of the major things, questions have been answered. So let's go ahead and take another call here. We do have a line with us, Eric on the east side here with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
In regards to local matters, the alt-right or right-wing propaganda outlet KFOX shared 3 cherry-picked stories today on their Facebook news page meant to dehumanize and demonize trans people in El Paso. 3 stories in one day meant to increase the hatred and harassment of trans people in El Paso. One even suggesting that just acknowledging trans people exist is mocking Christianity. Like day after day after day, it seems KFOX is attacking trans people in El Paso with cherry-picked stories, like stories they wrote themselves or stories full of alarmist disinformation meant to scare the ignorant and bigoted about what is happening in our schools, stores, or society involving trans people. Like 3 stories in one day, that's pretty ridiculous. And I haven't counted every single time KFOX has referenced Bud Light's revenues going down for having a trans person marketing their beer, but it seems like there are weekly updates on that specific story. And that story selection choice is clearly meant to increase hatred towards trans people and to tell business owners that if you acknowledge trans people exist, you'll lose money. Like if you acknowledge trans people exist, you'll be viewed negatively by a lot of people. That's what they want to communicate.
Okay, I got to ask at this juncture, have you attempted to address this to the administration and leadership over there, or are you expecting us to do that for you? Because if you think we make editorial decisions for their Facebook page, you're sadly mistaken in this case.
Yeah, I'm just bringing awareness that your news partners are actively targeting El Paso's most vulnerable. Like in the mental health and public health communities, there's this concept of minority stress. That's when a minority group experiences a high level of prejudice in their community that they develop physical and mental health problems like high blood pressure, depression, anxiety, and various forms of chronic stress that eventually cause suicide in many instances. And, you know, KFOX sharing those 3 stories in one day alone increases this minority stress and prejudice in El Paso. And it's important for El Pasoans to be aware of it. You know, these hate and messaging campaigns from right-wing media companies have very real consequences on the lives of the most marginalized not just in El Paso, but America at large. And, I've asked you this in the past, which is more of a rhetorical question at this point, why are partners at KFOX doing everything in their power to cause trans people to be harassed?
So again, if you're going to try to hold this program accountable for something made by a different news outlets, which we do have certain news sharing agreements with, including to talk about the stories we talked about today, which I note you're not talking about because I guess if it doesn't upset you or you think it has an agenda, it's not worth talking about, including talking about things affecting the community going on within it. And you're primarily on their Facebook page. I've seen you over in the Facebook comments there as well, even during the State of the Union address or the State of the State address, putting up similar kind of concepts here. So again, I would encourage you, if you have issues with their reporting and the things going on with it, to talk to them. But if you have issues with what we're actually talking about and sharing on this program, that would be the venue for this. I mean, sure, it's a local issue, and if you take issue with it, again, I would encourage you to talk to them as opposed to expecting us to, or trying to browbeat us about it. Similar kind of thing with, if you're going to try to say that, well, I dislike everything else going on this station, and yet you don't have anything to say about what we're doing here on this program, because here's the thing, we are consistently doing our own thing and talking about the important stories going on in here. We don't have as much of the news capability as I would like internally here, so we often do rely on our news partners at KFOX 14 when it comes to those local stories. But if you're mad about some of the national ones, again, have you addressed this to them at all? Just curious.
I address the bigotry and disinformation promoted by Sinclair Broadcasting Group on KFOX's page every single day, literally. And that's one of the reasons why I started paying attention to you, is that you're partnered with this right-wing propaganda outlet and on this station full of conservative propagandists.
Okay, so you're saying that because guilt, you're trying to do this whole guilt by association thing, which simple answer, no. Again, we have consistently done our own thing here. We have a lot of different opinions that people end up bringing up and end up being debated, among other things. Trying to say that, trying to hold us accountable for the decisions made, not on our airwaves, not during our time slot for anyone else. The simple answer there is going to be no, my dude, because we make the stories and pick the stories that we think are of the most impact, importance, and, well, worth discussing in our community. So if you're trying to say that these people are bad, what are you going to do about it? The short answer is nothing, because they make their decisions. We have certain corporate requirements that we are required to do when it comes to national partnerships, of which we do have. But have you heard me, of those stories you bring up, have you heard me mention any of those, particularly in the way that you're talking about them? Have those crossed my lips?
It's really important to acknowledge that in El Paso, that there's this constant force dehumanizing and demonizing trans people. And today was especially notable because they shared 3 specific stories demonizing these people. And I'm thankful that you give me the platform to inform your audience and yourself that there are these harmful pressures on this marginalized community.
Okay, let's make a couple more things clear in case this is at all. We, again, do our own thing. We have certain partnerships, certain associations, but this program, I'm only going to claim what we do during this. Our national partners, our national hosts do their own thing. And this is not done in regards, replacement, amplification of any of that. We're here to definitely talk about the local part of it here. And if you take issue with the way when any one group or position is being displayed here, go for it. But also, if you're just trying to inform the people here, as you've said before, that you are here to try to counteract anything else going on any other airwaves. Again, we're accountable for what we put out on this program, and including the stuff from our news partners that talk about the local issues, which I know you often say, well, they're bad in general, and therefore, as if it's of any implication on what is going on with the stories that we bring up. You would often say that when we were regularly having on, again, former reporter with KFOX 14, Stephanie Seifert, as if that was somehow an implication on her. Meanwhile, the actual stories that they're talking about is not, you had nothing to say because you couldn't say anything bad about those. So you got your perspective. You're entitled to it here, and we do exist, and we have our platform in the way that we do in order to hear from the community. But again, if you're trying to say that, again, demand that I do something about something I have no control over, that's simply put not how this is going to work. Anyway, we got to take that next break now. So appreciate the point of the call for what it's worth. I guess at least it's local, but trying to say that, well, these people are bad, what are you going to do about it? Yeah, nah. Simple answer. Anyway, getting to that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we got more phone calls, more comments, more commentary on the line. So that number to call if you want to add your 2 cents is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. Sunland Park Mall has been sold to the president and owner of Star Western Wear. The new owner is Enoch Kimmelman. The new owner says he's going to rename the mall to the Shops at Solana. Kimmelman says his team has an innovative and creative vision for the mall, which includes converting it and making it a place for entertainment, food, and shopping. The triple-digit temperatures continue in the Borderland, and some El Pasoans are taking advantage of the city-run bus terminals to keep cool. Each of the Sun Metro transit centers come equipped with free Wi-Fi, restrooms, and most importantly, air conditioning, which makes them a good place to find refuge if people don't have air conditioning at home. Along with the air conditioning, it also offers parking and the purchase of Brio passes. There are 8 different transit centers located throughout the city of El Paso. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Just one crash reported right now on Gateway West at Yarborough. Slow traffic on Montana Avenue. Hawkins to Zaragoza is an 8-minute delay. Traffic's getting heavy on the I-10 eastbound from Hunter Viscount to Zaragoza with less than a 5-minute delay. And about the same 5-minute delay, heavy traffic on Zaragoza northbound between the Loop and Edgemere. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Hot temperatures going to continue. Weather warned for heat. We also have the excessive heat warning in effect through Thursday. Partly cloudy for your Tuesday. 20% chance of a thunderstorm for tomorrow. High around 108 degrees. High back around 108 for your Wednesday. 20% chance of a storm. We'll see partly cloudy skies. Continued hot for your Thursday. High around 109. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's BOGO $1 deal. Wendy's BOGO $1 deal is back at participating Wendy's. Buy a Dave's Single, Spicy Chicken Sandwich, 10-piece nugs, or medium frosty, and get another for $1. Double your deliciousness. Hurry, this BOGO deal won't last.
Now 60 seconds on money-making scams and frauds. From the Federal Trade Commission, this is Sam Levine, the director of the Bureau of Consumer Protection. Sam, the FTC gathers data all year long and shares that with the public. I noticed from the FTC's top frauds report that investment scams are huge. What's going on there?
Yeah, so right now, people are reporting a lot of investment scams, especially related to cryptocurrency. These scams start with a promise that you can make a lot of money quickly with little or no risk. And the scammers will reach you by phone, email, and text, as well as on social media. And almost all of them start with that bogus claim. That approach seems to be working for scammers because last year, people reported losing nearly $4 billion to investment scams. That's more than people lost to any other scam and more than double what people reported losing the year before.
Remember, you can learn more about how to spot, avoid, and report all types of scams and frauds at consumer.ftc.gov.
If your business is feeling a summer hiring wave, then you need Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply. This report is sponsored by Indeed.com.
Veterans, are you planning to file a VA disability claim? Get ready for a better way to file. The Decision Ready Claim Program gets you a decision within 30 days after it's submitted. That's just 30 days for the benefits and services you've earned. Talk to your accredited representative or go to www.benefits.va.gov/DRC to learn more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso and Andrew J. Polk. And careful what you wish for, you just might get it. Just like Louis Panado, hoping we'll repeat the phone number. Wish granted. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Because, again, if you're just here to be like, oh, man, if you're here to troll, at least be, like, good or clever at it and not unclear on the concept. It's a radio show. People getting in and out of their cars, so people might just be tuning in and want to call in. So lines are full up at the moment. But, again, one call ends, line becomes available, 915-544-5876. So consider your wish granted. Come on, guys. It's a live radio show. If you're like, if you're ever wondering, like, oh, man, why is he doing that? That doesn't make sense. Maybe it's not for you if you're online. Just a saying. As others also chiming in, Ed Munoz. Great to see you as well. Do appreciate it. And also a question about Ed Clore asking, I'm willing to moderate debate between some callers on the left and maybe a couple of right-leaning volunteers who can set up a day here or meet at Ellen J's. I think you just transpose it by Concordia, kind of convenience. Potentially. It's an idea I brought up. We aren't totally doing in-person events, really, ever. And 2 minutes. A lot of commentary coming in on that, but potentially. I'm not opposed to it, and we just don't kind of have the logistical capability at this point to make it like an official, quote-unquote, event. But you know what? I'm often open to a lot of weird things that may not totally fit into the show, but we can do it outside of the bounds anyway. Anyway, getting back to those phone lines now. We do have a Jerry on the northwest side of town here with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call. At one time, did you say you were protesting the tax on your property?
Yes. So I actually went through the property tax evaluation standpoint. I mean, there had been some advice brought through on this show about, okay, if you get the valuations, it's based on the whole processes, but finally came to realize that's it's, of course, based on last year's data. And based on last year's data, it was when we bought our house. We had the appraisal from when we bought it. So it ended up being pretty simple. We came in saying, hey, here's what we bought it for. And they're like, oh, that's the last year? Okay, do you want it set at that? And we agreed. And so Bob's your uncle.
Okay, so you come out a winner. That's good.
As much as you can be at the tax office anyway.
Yeah, well, two things that you're not going to get away from: death and taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I won my case myself.
Oh,
and
congrats there.
I was able to reduce it substantially. The other good news is the free speech issue with the current administration.
Okay.
You know that a court ruled, the Fifth Court, Circuit Court, I believe it was, ruled that what the Biden administration was doing through places like the FBI and the CDC was illegal in telling news agencies to hinder free speech and stop them from putting out things on Twitter and such like that.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm aware of at least some things coming out. The most I'm finding here right off the bat is involving some of Texas's ruling on that, but I've seen it go both ways, I guess.
Well, yeah, Biden administration was saying they're going to counter it, and the state that won, Missouri, that won that case basically, or had the judge put a stay on, had a judge rule in their favor, has countered the Biden administration, requesting that they do not put a stay on it.
Okay, gotcha there.
Yeah,
okay,
so
now I gotcha.
That's a win for free speech, basically. Okay. Third, excuse me?
No, I got you there.
Okay. Third good news. Biblical city of Sodom has been found, archaeologists say. Wiped out in the blink of an eye. This is from Christian News. And basically they found it in the northern part of Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
And they have archaeologists that are verifying it. And it happened, oh heck, I didn't see the date on this. Anyway, July 10th, Monday, July 10th, 2023 is when it was reported.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. So, and then there's one more good news thing. It has to deal with freedom of our Second Amendment. an update on the June 30th, and I don't know if you had reported on this. And the U.S. federal court has struck down the entire ATF final rule, 2021 R05F, definition of frame or receiver as unlawful. The U.S. federal court in the Northern District of Texas has vacated in its entirety the ATF's final rule, which we actively challenged in court as an intervener plaintiff. Our right to manufacture and distribute 80% lower receivers and our customers' rights to purchase 80% lowers and jigs has been finally restored.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that one as directly on our airwaves. It didn't come up on Friday, and it's not the kind of thing. It's not at least Texas-based. But yeah, basically, extent that one, I've been following it. It's kind of centers around the idea of at what point does a piece of material become then a restricted or a controlled item, serialized item in this case. So there has been this market out there for those so-called 80% lower receivers like you're talking about, where essentially it's a hunk of metal that has therefore been having some processes like essentially if anyone who's familiar at all with the lower receiver of an AR-15, it has the mag well, it has most of the features of it, but all of the area where you would then put the actual the trigger, the single or double stage trigger that you end up putting in, or any of that, the pocket it goes into is just solid metal at that point. So the question is, at what point in the process of production does a thing become the thing that it is being built towards? And so the kind of, I guess, handshake ruling before this was that 80% was as long as it's not more than 80% along the process, because if you say that anything that's going to go into a process to become this firearm is the firearm already, you'd be talking about, if you take a hunk of aluminum, put it on down there saying, all right, that's going to turn into a firearm. Does it immediately then become the thing and restricted as the thing as it is, even if it doesn't end up being manufactured that way? So it goes around that, and that, yeah, that has been one of the things. Like I follow, among other things, the Firearms Policy Coalition is one of the ones that was actually, I think, filed in that case. So yeah, that is an interesting one that has developed and does certainly have implications here, but that has not been one we had directly addressed.
Okay, so I'm just wondering if that also would affect the pistol arm or pistol grip extensions.
Yeah, the braces. That I'm not as sure about. Definitely 80% lower receivers. I'll completely agree with you on that on there. But that one, there has already been, so the 80% lower receivers is one of those issues of, is this legislation or is this policy that is going in place in lieu of legislation? And basically it's been said that, no, this is not something that is based on specific instruction. There have specifically been things on, short-barreled rifles and short-barreled shotguns. That is under the, I believe, either back in the 30s, the NFA in general, National Firearms Act. So that has specific regulation on it. And it's not that they were outlawed in any case. It's just that they are basically now saying, no, any of this leeway of, well, it's not really being shouldered, therefore is, no, if it's short and it's got a barrel and it's rifled, it then counts as this thing, is basically the way they're standing coming at it. So that one's going to be a little bit harder to argue in the opposite, by my reading anyway.
I was thinking more of the pistol brace,
sure.
Where you put it inside and then you mount it to your shoulder, and it's still a pistol. It's not, doesn't make it into a rifle or a short-barreled rifle.
Listen,
all it is shoulder.
Okay, we're getting a little bit far afield here. I'll just say this on that one. I fully put, maybe not all the blame, but a lot of blame on anyone, because there was like one letter from the ATF that's basically said that, okay, as long as you're not intended to be shouldered, it's fine. But then everyone kept asking for letters. And I think finally someone probably in the letter receiving office, probably part of their brain snapped and said, fine. You know what? They're banned again. They're all banned again. I'm not saying it's right. I'm imagining that's how it ended up going.
Well, yeah. They pissed them off. They got them up. They got the kingmakers, the rulers upset. So, and when they do, they take it out on everybody. Anyway, just some good news today. And it's good to know that things do happen the right way sometimes.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
Have a good day, thing.
Yeah, appreciate the point on the call. You have a good one there as well.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, and with that, I got time for at least one more call. See what we can squeeze in here before the end of it. Some other commentary coming in, like Ed Munoz saying taxes are going high everywhere, sigh, and some others saying true that, among other things. I mean, yeah, that's like I said, it's a victory, if not exactly a total victory at the tax office. And we'll see if this whole new rule comes into Texas, and that new policy, even though it's going to be also subject to an actual constitutional amendment, which technically could be going through. Anyway, let's go ahead and get to at least again that one more call we got time for. At the very least, we have Raul in the Northeastern line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Trump's racist and xenophobic incited mass murderer, the El Paso Walmart killer, Patrick Crazy Us, made the national press for getting a 90-year jail sentence. And it was reported that
90 life
Crazy
sentences.
Us, his manifesto parroted Trump's white supremacist immigration invasion rhetoric, with the 23 people killed being the worst and biggest murder of Mexican Americans in the United States. Man, is that sad. You know, that's one of America's crises. Mass murders in an America where no one is safe anywhere, anytime, from millions of armed right-wing nuts and losers with their culture and political grievances and a political party that enables them. Now, per El Paso Matters, El Paso on Sunday had its 24th straight day of triple-digit temperatures, and that's breaking the city's all-time record of consecutive days with 100-plus degree heat. Now, today it hit 100, making it the 25th straight day of 100-degree heat. But you know, it's really no big deal. The leading contender for the Republican presidential nomination, the commander of chaos, traitorous moron Donald Trump, called global climate change a Chinese hoax intended to hurt U.S. manufacturers. Now, hey, Trumpers, don't overlook the fact that Trump has had his clothing lines made in China for over a generation, okay? But then after Bernie Sanders attacked Trump's climate change views in the Democratic debate, Trump told Fox News, now this is what he actually said, well, I think that climate change is just a very, very expensive form of tax. And a lot of people are making a lot of money. And I know much about climate change. I'd be received environmental awards. You know, and I often think that this is done for the benefit of China. Obviously, I joke, but this is done for the benefit of China. So which one is it, one or the other? You know, from 1900 to 1989, now that's a span of 89 years. El Paso each year averaged 12 days of triple-digit temperatures annually. But the number of days topping 100 has increased in the recent years as global climate change has reshaped the region's weather patterns. Between 1990 and 2019, a span of 19 years, the Borderland on average experienced 26 days of 100-degree heat, going from 12 to 26 of hot as hell days in El Paso, 117% increase. And then from 2020 to 2022, El Paso averaged 37 days of triple-digit temperatures each year. So now in just 2 years, the number of hot as hell days increased 42%, from 26 days to 37 days, hot as hell days in El Paso. So this is the data that some out there in your audience may question. And you've repeatedly stated that you're more concerned with the solution to global climate change than its causes. Now, I don't know if you've ever studied decision-making or problem-solving theories and strategies, but I think you'd have to agree with me that before you can develop a solution to a problem, one must first determine the cause or culprits of the problem and phenomena.
So in having to agree with you, the simple answer, no. But I will say that, I mean, there's a lot of discussion that happens on this, a lot of people with different ideas about what is the aspect of it. And again, that's the part that I'm least interested in. I mean, we're policy focused in a lot of ways, and don't think I didn't know the gleeful nature that you talked about, the potential impact to the former president and his campaign based on the statements made by the now convicted and incarcerated for his life. And it was 90 life sentences, not 90 years, 90 consecutive life sentences. So let's get a couple of things straight here. But again, if you're talking about a problem and how to address it, there's good and bad ways to do it. I mean, the whole argument involving China is that China is saying, oh, no, y'all need to focus on the climate change. Y'all totally need to do something about it. Meanwhile, they're pumping out more fossil fuel coal plants than ever, as saying like, no, y'all can do that. We're y'all solve the problem for us, and we'll just keep doing and making the cheapest stuff we can and taking all your manufacturing capabilities so we can eventually take over the world by making it so that you can actually make things anymore. They don't say the last part, but it's kind of like built into the concept of it here. So yeah, if we're talking about how we're going to respond to it, because there are a bunch of different ways that people have suggested responding to it, right? There's like a tree planting campaigns, and the idea if we just plant a ton of trees like everywhere that can support more trees, that would have a noticeable impact or effect on it. I mean, again, it's speculative because no one's actually put it into place, but then there's the people saying, well, then we need to tax it, the cap and trade ideas of it, which then some of the ways they end up being talked about ends up being okay, but is this just another tax? And do you actually expect it to be effective on the issue you're putting it towards? Or is just as well, that's what we've got legislatively. The rest of y'all figure this out. And then there's the whole, well, people need to use less plastic straws. Meanwhile, ignoring the fact that the people who are making the plastic straws and the major industry is doing this are the major sources of the pollution and like the patch out there. So sure, there is an argument to say, okay, let's identify the problem and then deal with it. But you're also not saying, and therefore any solution is viable. Again, the whole ends justify the means type of mentality towards it. You're missing several parts of the conversation because, sure, identifying a problem is one thing, but also how you end up then dealing with it is another one entirely. I mean, there's a lot of things out there. I was actually talking with a friend who has actually started working for OSHA, believe it or not, recently. And a lot of people say like, oh man, you're just here to kill jobs and things. But another perspective on it is that most of the regulations are written in blood, meaning that they didn't come out of like, oh, well, this seems like it'll be a good idea. We should probably do that. It's no, this happened. This situation happened. People have been severely injured or died from it. And therefore, these are the kind of things that have been put into place in order to help ensure as much as is possible that not happen again. We're not exactly on the, okay, this is what has happened. This is how we need to deal with it. We're nowhere, frankly, near that. And if you think that anything in this country is getting towards the idea of making it so that it's a lot of consumer-sided impacts, I guess is what I'm coming down to here, is on the idea of, oh, well, y'all can't have these things. You're not allowed to do that. We're going to restrict certain things. And that's the kind of aspect on this I'm going to be having serious issues with, because as opposed to, and this is not a popular one, that one of the most polluting entities in the United States is actually the United States military, which say it sound a little bit ridiculous until you talk to anyone who's ever served anywhere overseas and has been involved in a burn pit, and you tell me that that was a good, safe, or wise idea in any straits here. So there's a lot of aspects of this that are difficult. And again, besides the problem, the solution is often way more complicated. So that's the part I focus on. If you don't like that, that's your prerogative. But by saying that, oh, well, you're not agreeing with me, therefore you're wrong, is also missing the point, as some of the other trolls in the comments are about anyway. So that's so much to say that we've gone straight through what we need to do for this next break there. And yeah, I've never been in place of a burn pit, but there's a reason that it's being called one of the hugest issues involving veterans who are exposed to them for our current generations. In any case, we're just going to have to end the show there for today because we're out of time here for this program. So, if you're just here to shout that you suck, we'll keep dealing with you as we deal with all the other callers and dispensing with it, because here's the thing about trolling. It wants you to take up time. So if we're just dispensing with your issues but not letting you delve into it fully, your tears give me sustenance. I'll just put it that way. Also, one thing that we're never going to debate on this program is the right of someone to exist, because that's not something that's up for debate. In the meantime, we'll have to leave it there for today because we are super out of time here for this program. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. We'll do it again tomorrow as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So until then, until next time, I want you all to stay safe out there, look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso Freeway is looking good with no delays and no major crashes right now. There's a reported accident Gateway West at Yarborough, a stalled vehicle on Gateway East at Lee Trevino, eastbound Montana, Hawkins out to Zaragoza, a 10-minute delay, and northbound Mesa Street from downtown up to Desert Boulevard, 5-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. If your business is feeling a summer hiring wave, then you need Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Are you a business owner, CEO, or responsible for marketing? If you are, iHeartMedia can help you reach your goals and find new customers. We reach more consumers in your target area than anyone else, and we can give you access to those potential customers more cost-effectively across radio, digital, podcasting, and social. We'd love to show you how iHeartMedia can work for you. From your cell, dial pound 250 and say keyword great results. That's pound 250 and say great results.
Life's too short to just live in pain. Visit the Good Feet store today and see how we can help.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food, too.
For nearly 100 years, folks have trusted Blue Star medicated ointment to relieve the pain and itching of almost any skin irritation.
It works on my son's dry, itching feet and their jock itch.
I had this rash on my neck. Nothing worked until Blue Star.
Blue Star worked great on my ringworm without steroids.
My wife and I have been using Blue Star for years. It's never let us down.
Look for the white box with the Blue Star in the first aid section. Feel Blue Star work fast, or your money back.
We're going abroad for the first time in years, to Spain. So we started using Babbel.
And started learning Spanish fast.
With Babbel, you can start having conversations in another language in just 3 weeks.
¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo te llamas?
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babbel is designed with that goal in mind.
In just 3 weeks, we're starting to have conversations in Spanish. Gracias, Babbel.
Babbel, language for life. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. It's still not clear how a small bag of cocaine ended up in the White House. The Secret Service is continuing its investigation into who brought the drugs into the West Wing. Agents found the powder during a routine sweep of the building on July 2nd, while President Biden and his family were at Camp David for the holiday weekend. The U.S. says it's time for Sweden to join NATO.
Sweden has taken a number of steps to address the concerns that Turkey raised.
State Department spokesman Matthew Miller told reporters it's time to move to full accession for Sweden in very short order. Turkish officials have been blocking Sweden's membership, accusing Stockholm of supporting Kurdish militant groups. President Biden is currently meeting with NATO leaders in Lithuania and is set to meet one-on-one with Ukrainian President Zelensky there this week. Over 42 million Americans are under heat warnings this week. Extreme heat is already hitting the Southwest in states including California and Arizona, and the dangerous conditions are only expected to get worse. The National Weather Service warns Phoenix residents to be ready for temperature soaring in